And now that Armadillo Phone Cases has prepared their schedule of cash receipts and their schedule of cash payments, they can make out their cash budget. For the most part, what we're going to do preparing this cash budget is just pull numbers off of our schedule of cash receipts to find out when money is coming in, pull numbers off our schedule of cash payments to find out when money is coming out. The only difference being on a cash budget, you also have to account for having proper amount of cash in any one given time. Most companies will institute a policy that says you have to have a minimum cash balance of X amount at any one given time during the year, and for Armadillo Phone Cases that is going to be $59,000. Should they fall below that $59,000 minimum cash balance, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to borrow. And they have the option of borrowing from any lending institution, a bank or whatever, in increments of $1,000, which means they can't borrow $6,547. It has to be in increments of 1,000. So they can borrow $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, but not anything in between. And no one gets to borrow for free in life, so this lending institution is going to charge them 8% annual percentage rate, APR, which is for the year, which means that each quarter it's essentially going to be 2% interest getting tacked on any borrowing that they make. If they do have to borrow during the period, well, they're going to have to pay it back at some point, and their policy is going to be to pay it back in full as long as they have sufficient cash excess to do so. So no partial payments. They're either paying it all off or they're not paying them at all. Let's start with the first quarter. Armadillo Phone Cases is beginning this year in this case with $30,000 in its cash account. Probably why the company has instituted this $59,000 minimum policy, because they think that $30,000 they're planning on starting the year with is a little bit too light. So if they're starting with $30,000 in cash on January 1st, the first day of the first quarter, in their bank account, what are they going to add to it during the period? Well, all of the cash that they collect from customers during the first period. So their cash receipts during the first quarter can be found right on the schedule of cash receipts. If we go to the schedule of cash receipts, we see that they expect in total to collect $422,940 in cash receipts from customers during that quarter. So we bring that number over to our cash budget. And now what we're saying is we're going to start the year, the quarter, with $30,000. Add to it $422,940 worth of cash we're going to collect from customers, and those two numbers added together means that Armadillo Phone Cases will in total have $452,940 of cash available to them during the first quarter. But what's it available for? To pay for all the things they're going to have to pay for, all of their materials, labor, overhead, expenditures for capital expenditures, selling and administrative expenses, etc. They have to pay for all of that stuff. Well, we already did a schedule to figure out what that was expected to be during each quarter. So the first thing we have on our list is our capital expenditures. If we go to our capital expenditures, we are going to see on our schedule of cash payments that they expect to pay $22,500 for capital expenditures during the first quarter. For direct materials, if we scroll up, we see our total payments for direct materials during the first quarter is expected to be $68,025. The payments for direct labor during the first quarter on the schedule of cash payments says they're going to pay $150,500 for direct labor during that quarter. We have manufacturing overhead next. If we go to our schedule of cash payments one more time, we see that our total payments for manufacturing overhead during the first quarter is $22,620. We bring that number over. We have selling and administrative expenses coming up next. Well, we go back to our schedule of cash payments, and Armadillo Phone Cases during that first quarter of the 2019 year is expected to pay $126,355 for S&A expenses during that period. For income taxes, back to our schedule of cash payments, that's going to be $10,000. And then lastly, we have interest expense, which would be interest accrued on any borrowing that we've had to make. Well, let's assume that there's no borrowing in place when this period begins, and that's just going to be a zero because there's nothing that says we have to take out a loan yet when the first quarter ends. So if we take the sum of everything we're paying cash for, our capital expenditures, our direct materials, our direct labor, our manufacturing overhead, our selling and administrative expenses, our income taxes, and our interest expense, to come up with a total of $400,000 on the dot. That is the total amount of money that they're going to have to spend. Next, we have to find their ending cash balance before financing. Well, how do we find what we have in ending cash? It's what's left over. It's the amount of cash that is available to us, less how much we expect to have to pay for all the things we pay in our normal course of operations. Our total cash available is $452,940. We're expecting to make cash payments of $400,000, which means if that is what comes to light, Armadillo Phone Cases is only going to have $52,940 of cash in their bank account at the end of the period. Well, that's not equal to the $59,000 minimum balance that we've set this policy for. We're going to be cash light. We're going to have a deficiency, as they call it. By how much? Well, take that $52,940 and subtract it from the $59,000 minimum balance. We see we're $6,060 too light, so we have to borrow. Now, we don't have enough cash to meet our minimum cash balance. Our information again tells us that they can borrow in increments of 1,000. So let's start there. They need $6,060. So borrowing $6,000 is not going to be enough. They can't borrow exactly $6,060 because it has to be in increments of 1,000, which means they have to go up to the next one. So they're going to have to borrow $7,000 to be able to get to their minimum cash balance. Our total effects of financing for the quarter is going to be that we borrowed $700,000. And what will their ending cash balance be? Well, it'll be their ending cash before financing, plus or minus any cash related things that come in from financing. In this case, we're taking in another $7,000, our total effects of financing, which means their ending balance is expected to be $59,940 at the end of the first quarter. They are above their minimum cash balance desired now, but they owe $7,000 to this lending institution. Moving on to the second quarter, what is our beginning cash balance? Well, if we end the first quarter, say on March 31st, with $59,940 in our bank account, it stands to reason that when we open up for business on April 1st, the first day of the second quarter, we're going to have that same amount. So your ending balance for any quarter is always going to be the same as your beginning cash balance for the next quarter. If we're ending the first quarter with $59,940 in our bank account, the second quarter's beginning cash balance is going to also be $59,940. And to that, we'll add any cash that we collect from customers during the second quarter, which if we go to our schedule of cash payment or receipts, we're expecting to collect $445,500 in cash receipts from customers during the second quarter. And if we begin the period with $59,940 in our bank account, and we expect to receive $445,500 for the payments from customers during the period, which means the total cash available to Armadillo Phone Cases will be $505,440. which they can use to pay for all of the normal things that they pay for during their operations, which we're going to take right from the schedule of cash payments. So starting with their capital expenditures during the second quarter. They're expecting to spend $22,500 again on capital expenditures. Their payments for direct materials, according to our schedule of cash payments during the second quarter, is expected to be $75,295. They are expecting to pay for direct labor during that second quarter, $150,000. Their manufacturing overhead payments are expected to be $22,565 during the second quarter. Their selling and administrative expenses during the second quarter, according to their schedule of cash payments, are expected to be $126,355. They're expecting to have to pay Uncle Sam $10,000 for income taxes during that second quarter. And they're having to incur some interest expense that they're going to have to pay off. They took out a loan at the end of the first quarter because they had a cash deficiency. They took out a loan, if we scroll down, of $7,000. Well, that $7,000 isn't going to be what the bank wants them to pay back, because the bank has to make their money out of any kind of deal they make. They're going to charge interest. And if we scroll all the way back up to our information at the beginning, we see that the interest that they're going to charge Armadillo Phone Cases is 8% for the year. And since they're 4 quarters in the year, that's like 2% each quarter, which means the total amount of money that is owed to the bank, that $7,000, the bank is going to tack on 2% of that is an extra payment for interest. So to figure out our interest expense for the period, we just take that $7,000 that we borrowed, we multiply it by the quarterly rate of interest, which is 2%. And 2% of $7,000 is $140. So now we have to figure out what our total cash payments are. Well, they're just the sum of all the cash payments we're going to make, the $22,500 for capital expenditures, the $75,295 for direct materials, $150,000 for direct labor, $22,565 for manufacturing overhead, $126,355 for selling and administrative expenses, $10,000 for income taxes, and lastly, $140 we're going to have to pay to the bank in terms of interest. We're going to come up with a total of $406,855 in cash payments we're going to have to make. So what is our ending cash balance before financing? Well, it's just our cash available to us less our cash payments. $505,440 minus $406,855 means that after they get done collecting from other customers and then paying for all of their normal operating expenses, Armadillo phone cases is going to have $98,585 in ending cash before the effects of financing, which means they are well in excess of their $59,000 minimum balance. If we take that $98,585, subtract from it our $59,000, how far in excess? $39,585, which is more than sufficient cash excess to pay off that $7,000 debt that is owed. Since they can pay it in full and still be well above their minimum cash balance, Armadillo Phone Cases is going to choose to pay off that $7,000 it owes to the bank. Let me just go and make that negative really fast. There we go. So what are the total effects of financing? Well, it's going to decrease their total cash balance in the second quarter by $7,000. And if their ending cash balance before financing was $98,585, but they're going to pay off that $7,000 loan, that means at the end of the period, the remaining cash after they get themselves out of debt with the bank is going to be $91,585. And since that is what they are ending the second quarter with, it's also going to be what they're beginning that third quarter with. So they're going to begin the third quarter with the same $91,585. Cash receipts for the third quarter are going to be, according to our schedule of cash receipts, another $445,500. And if they're starting with $91,585 and collecting $445,500 during the third quarter, that means that the total cash available to Armadillo Phone Cases during the third quarter is going to be $537,085, which they can use to pay for all of their normal cash payments. One more time, back to the schedule of cash payments. They expect in the third quarter to have to pay $22,500 for capital expenditures. They expect they're going to have to pay, according to their schedule of cash payments, $76,640 for direct materials. For direct labor, according to their schedule of cash payments, they're going to have to pay $151,000. Their total payments for manufacturing overhead are expected to be $22,675 during the third quarter, taken right from the schedule of cash payments. For selling and administrative expenses, if we go back and look one more time, their total amount of S&A expenses they're going to pay for during that third quarter is another $126,355. For income taxes, according to our schedule of cash payments, they're expected to pay in $10,000 for their quarterly income tax payment, which brings us to interest expense. In the first quarter, we borrowed $7,000. At the end of the second quarter, we're planning to repay that $7,000 in borrowing, which means at the end of the third quarter, what borrowing is there for interest to accumulate on? There isn't. We paid off our loan. We didn't take out a new one. We have no outstanding loans on our books expectedly at this time, which means one more time we expect our interest payment is going to be $0. And then to find our total cash payments, we just find the sum of all of our different items we're going to pay cash for, and it totals up to $409,170. So our ending cash balance before financing is going to be our cash available in the third quarter of $537,085, less the $409,170 in cash payments, and that comes out to a total of $127,950. Well, our minimum balance is $59,000, so if we take that $127,915 and subtract our $59,000 minimum cash balance, we will have cash excess on our books, if all things go according to schedule on our budget, of $68,915. We are not going to borrow any money. We don't have any debt to repay on our books, which means the total effects of financing are going to be nothing. So our ending cash balance after financing, since there was nothing to do with financing, is going to be exactly the same as it was before financing. It's $127,915 we expect to have in our bank account at the end of the third quarter. And if we expect to have that amount at the end of the third quarter, stands to reason that is going to be what we begin the fourth quarter with. So our beginning balance for the fourth quarter is $127,915. 1 quarter left in 2019 to prepare our cash budget for. We're going to take that beginning cash balance and add to it any cash receipts we expect to receive from customers, which our schedule of cash receipts tells us in the fourth quarter is expected to be $485,892. If we add those two numbers together, we come up with $613,807, which Armadillo phone cases will have available to it throughout the fourth quarter. And let's figure out what they're going to pay during that fourth quarter, so we can subtract it to find our ending cash balance before financing. To our schedule of cash payments, capital expenditures in the fourth quarter is going to be $22,500. According to our schedule of cash payments, we are planning on spending $81,010 on payments for direct materials in the fourth quarter. According to our schedule of cash payments, direct labor expenditures during that fourth quarter are going to be $169,000. Armadillo phone cases, according to the schedule of cash payments, is going to have to pay $24,655 for manufacturing overhead. Their selling and administrative expenses, which have been holding steady at $126,355, are going to take a small jump during the fourth quarter up to $126,949, which they're going to have to transfer cash to pay off. Their income taxes on the schedule of cash payments says they're going to make their last quarterly income tax payment for the year of $10,000. And with interest expense, if we don't have a loan on our books, we're not going to accumulate interest. We didn't take out any new loans at the end of the third quarter. There's no loans outstanding on our books. That's going to be zero. So if we add together all of those items that we have to pay cash for, it comes up to $434,114. And if we're going to expect to have $613,807 available to us, we have to pay $434,114 to our vendors, our employees, our utility companies, the government, etc. That means that their ending cash balance before financing at the end of the year in their bank account, they're thinking they're going to have $179,693. Their minimum is $59,000, so let's subtract that amount from that $179,693 they expect to have. It tells us that Armadillo phone cases is going to have an expected cash excess of $120,693 at the end of the year. Their financing is nada. There's no loans on the books to accumulate interest to have to pay off, etc. So their ending cash balance is going to be exactly the same as their cash balance before financing, because there's nothing to do with financing happening during this quarter. So they're going to end the year with $179,693 on their books for their cash balance. Now let's fill in our totals. Total means for the year. So the beginning cash balance for the year is going to be equal to our beginning cash balance at the beginning of the first quarter. For the year, we're starting with $30,000 in our bank account. For the year, we expect to collect a whole lot of money from customers. $422,940 during the first quarter, $445,500 during the second quarter, $445,500 during the third quarter, and $485,892 during the fourth quarter, for a total amount of cash collections from customers of $1,799,832. If they're starting the year with $30,000 in their bank account and they're collecting $1,799,832 from customers during the year, that means the total amount of cash available to Armadillo phone cases is going to be $1,829,832. Their total cash payments for the year is just equal to how much they're going to pay during the first, second, third, and fourth quarter respectively for each of the different things they have to pay for. If they are paying $22,500 each quarter for capital expenditures, well, if you add that all up, the sum of those four numbers in the capital expenditures row is going to total up to $90,000. Same process, if we add together the amount we pay for direct materials in each quarter, the $68,025 during the first quarter, plus the $75,295 during the second quarter, plus the $76,640 during the third quarter, plus the $81,010 that they're going to pay for direct materials during the fourth quarter. In total, Armadillo phone cases is going to pay $300,970 for direct materials. If we add up the four quarterly payments we expect to make for direct labor, they're going to add up to $620,500. We add together the four quarterly payments that we expect to make for manufacturing overhead, and it's going to add up to $92,515. We have a whole lot of selling and administrative expenses that we have to pay for because bosses always make the big money. We add those four quarterly payments for selling and administrative expenses together, we come up with $506,014. If we're paying $10,000 in income tax for each of the four quarters, that means for the year in total we're going to pay $40,000. And then interest expense, we have that $140 interest charge during the second quarter, nothing else, so it's $140 in interest expense in total. So what are our total cash payments expected to be for the year? It's just the sum of the total of everything that we have. If we add together the $90,000 for capital expenditures, the $300,970 for materials, the $620,500 for labor, the $92,515 for manufacturing overhead, the $506,014 we're going to pay for selling and administrative expenses, the $40,000 we're going to pay for income taxes, and the $140 we're going to pay for interest expense. That is a total of $1,650,139 we are expecting to pay in cash payments during the year. So our ending cash balance before financing at the end of the year for the year ending is going to be whatever we end the fourth quarter with. That's going to be $179,693. Our minimum balance is expected to be $59,000, so we have to have, which means that our projected cash excess at the end of the year for the year is going to be $120,693. And then what did we do for financing during the year? Well, during the first quarter, we borrowed $7,000. During the second quarter, we paid off that $7,000. The total overall effect of our financing for the year is we borrowed, but we paid off what we owed. So any additions or, excess amount of cash that we would have that would be the result of financing at the end of the year, it's going to be break even. Our total effects of financing are zero, which means our ending cash balance for the year is going to be that same $179,693.